Hello and welcome to Miniature Realms. My name's Stuart and welcome to Epic Battles Waterloo campaign stroke Napoleonic project vlog number 1. I didn't think I'd be doing a project vlog until next year, once the full release had come out. But as I've mentioned to nauseum on plenty of other videos, I was very lucky to receive a few frames of British infantry as review stock prior to release from Warlord Games, and a frame of the light cavalry as well. And then, like many of you, I have heavy cavalry sprues from the front of the War Games Illustrated magazine as well. So I do have enough to actually start really thinking about it and planning it and getting started. So I thought, you know what, I'm going to start a little bit earlier. So existing subscribers or followers of some of my other projects, so the Epic American Civil War and the Bolt Action vlog and the Wars of the Rose as well, would know that I kind of generally like to pick a topic, pick a battle, pick a theme or something to collect an army around, rather than just kind of collect an army and build a list. There's definitely no points values involved in my historical wargaming in terms of planning. I'm not saying I would never play a game with points values, but generally like to kind of collect something to a historical theme, and that'll be no different with Napoleonics as well. And yeah, I kind of just I like a place to record my ramblings, my thoughts, show a bit of progress, what I've been building and painting, whether it's terrain. I talk about terrain setup and table setup, talk about order of battle, history, all kinds of different things, and anything that really comes to mind. So it's a bit of a mind spew. I try not to make them too long. I know that some people won't like this kind of thing. They prefer the more formalised painting tutorials and stuff, which is cool because there'll be loads of that kind of stuff. But I know some of you who I communicate with on a regular basis do like these kind of things as well. So this is it. So the little bit about the project. I'm a big fan of the Peninsular War, like many people who come from the UK, I imagine, who were guided into the period through with Bernard Cornwell and Sharp and things like that. So no apologies there for liking that. And like, as much as I love the 100 Days campaign, I wanted to do something Peninsula based as well. There was a bit of a kind of a moment of thinking, well, the beautiful miniatures from Warlord Games are 1812 pattern uniform, which basically means they've got a Belgic shako rather than the more traditionally Peninsula, in inverted commas, stovepipe. It's an 1812 was the year that the uniform was brought in, but I know that the campaigning regiments in the Peninsula didn't obviously receive those uniforms straight away, so there may have been drips and drabs. There's lots of conflicting sources around. Some will say that, you know, you pretty much nothing was replaced until the 100 Days campaign. Some will say that by the end of 1814 it was all changed. I don't know. That seems historians don't fully know either. So I thought if I aim for a late Peninsula, I can at least in my head be happy that maybe the units have had replacement uniforms. And you know what? From the distance I'm sitting away from the miniatures now, which is about the same as the camera, you can really tell from that distance anyway. So it doesn't really matter all that much. So what I've decided to do was base a project around Vittoria, but also make it so that most of, or at least a lot of, the units I can still use for Waterloo campaign as well. So a bit of a twofold thing, partly because I know lots of other people will be collecting this based on Waterloo campaign, but also I love the Waterloo campaign as well. Now, as much as I love doing absolutely huge battles, there is a little bit of a sort of trade-off of what's a reasonable size to fit on a table. So what I've decided to do is to base this around the fighting around Gamara Major, which is a sort of the top northern side of the map, shall we call it, for the Battle of Vittoria. So that gives us Lieutenant General Thomas Graham's left column for that battle. For those of you familiar with it, I'm not going to go into detail in this first vlog about it, but that gives the 1st and 5th divisions, along with some Portuguese brigades, independent brigades and things as well. But we'll start with those divisions. I'm probably going to start with the 1st Division. That's Major General Kenneth Howard, and then I'm probably going to collect by brigade to start with, and I'm going to start with the 2nd Brigade, the King's German Legion. And this is kind of for two reasons really. But one, there's some King's German Legion flags on the sheets that I've been sent by Warlord Games until I'm able to get more and more stuff when it's all released and decide which flags I'm going for and look at other flag manufacturers, etc. So there's flags for it already. And secondly is the King's German Legion featured pretty heavily at Waterloo as well, which is, so there's a kind of a double tick, and that's that dual purpose, that dual use thing here. Now the brigades as a split would have been different in Waterloo, but this first unit here, which you may well have seen in the painting tutorial that I did, is the 5th Line Battalion of the King's German Legion, who had a bit of a nasty end at Waterloo. And then I have enough to do a couple more frames to do a couple more regiments, so I'm going to do King's German Legion as well. So I'm probably going to do the 1st and 2nd line, so they fit in with Vittoria. I know the 1st and 2nd line weren't on the same part of the battlefield as the 5th at Waterloo, so I don't think they were, and we'll go into that more detail later. But if I just move this over slightly, and you won't be able to see super clearly, I'm not going to move the camera. These are all the KGL flags here, apart from some saying Peninsula. The print is so small it is almost impossible to make out what the difference is, apart from what's written above them to tell me which flag's which. So I'm not going to lose an awful lot of sleep if I have to switch them around a little bit for certain battles and things. So I'm going to go with what they would be for Vittoria for now, and then when we come to looking at the section of Waterloo that I want to fight, because again I probably won't be fighting the whole thing, at least with using 4 regiment or 3 regiment bases. We'll come back to that a bit later. And then also then you have the 1st and 2nd Light Battalions as well, which will be a fantastic way of using the wonderful riflemen in rank, which lovely models. But I know there's been some people, complaining that they're in line. The reasons for that have been given, and I totally understand them. I still would have preferred skirmishing troops on that sprue, but I totally understand as well the reason for doing that. The release is a Waterloo release, and at Waterloo a couple of regiments of the 95th didn't really do much. They sat in square a lot of the day or didn't really fight, so that's why they've released them that way. Agree with it or not, they do have a sound reason for doing it. So I can make use of the standard frame quite well, and it's a really good brigade to start with. And I've got enough to pretty much go. I have to wait for my box in January to do my 2nd Light Battalion, but other than that I can get the rest all going. Right then, so that's the initial plan, is to do that 2nd Brigade from the 1st Division at Vittoria. So I'll have 3 line regiments of King's German Legion, which means they're all going to look pretty much identical, and 2 light battalions of King's German Legion as well, and then they'll be usable in Waterloo. So that's the initial plan, and I'll move on to decide which brigades I do next after that. So I'm going to do it bit by bit rather than overwhelming myself, I think. So you can see what I've done so far, which is the 1 regiment here, and I'll pop some closer pictures up for those of you who have not seen the tutorials. And I've done 2 horse artillery bases, 1 from the light cavalry sprue and 1 from the heavy cavalry sprue, and again that's part of an upcoming painting tutorial. It's all been recorded and edited, and will be out a few days after this little video. I wanted to touch very briefly on just a few thoughts on table size, scale and unit frontages and things, because I know it comes up in the groups and things quite a lot. And there's been a number of discussions around it, and they're probably kind of done to death now, but I haven't discussed it on video in terms of relation to the Epic Napoleonic release. So it was quite a big thing when Epic ACW was first announced, and then the boxes first got to everyone, and the frames would basically give you enough for a 5-stand regiment, and then the booklet recommended 5 stands for regular size and 7 stands for large, which looks fantastic on the table, but is actually wider in frontage than it would be recommended for a 28mm scale. So you've got a little bit of a problem there. You've got a mix between what looks fantastic and what also works on the tabletop as well. And for me, that is the key, that is the crux of it. I think the Warlord Games is idea here is to make it look as much like a full regiment as possible, rather than 24 men to 36 men on a table in a regiment. Wants to make it look like a really big game, but also I think the benefits of this scale mean that you can fight large battles on more regular home-sized tables, which for a lot of people tends to be 6x4 or 8x4, rather than these massive gaming tables you see used in historical gaming. And I think it opens it up to a wider market, and I think that's a benefit as well. So I think that I think you need to support both things, personally. I think, and it needs to be clear. As someone who's making content, I always want to be very clear that people should play it their own way, but make use of both things. So if you want to play it with 5 stands or many stands to a regiment because you've got the space and the pure visual spectacle of it, fantastic. If you want to trim it down so that you can fight a larger size battle on a smaller table, then do that as well. They are your miniatures, and Black Powder is such an open rule set that it allows you to do that. So the standard 4 is at 240. Now I like that. It does look good, but it will take away a lot of table real estate. You know, you can easily make formations, so your square's going to be like so. Your marching column's going to be like so. You can do your attack column like that as well. It works fairly well for most things. There's been a bit of chat about on the groups, and one of the most elegant solutions I've seen is to just use 3 for your standard regiment. Keep a stand off the table, and then when you need to form square or one of those other formations, just pop it on there so it stands out right when you're not really increasing the size. And that's probably what I'm going to do. With American Civil War, I've got units that are 2 and 3 mostly, the odd one that's 4 at large, because the community kind of got together and decided that no, 5 and 7 is too much, we're not going to do it. I think we'll see a little bit less of that with Napoleonics, but again, it doesn't matter, it's up to you. There's some fantastic conversions that we're going to see as well. I know a few people are talking about cutting the bases down, so you'll get 6 stands all cut in half. And I know that John Kitchen is thinking of using the squares you get for the officers and to cut one of these down as well and add 2 smaller squares in it, so that you can make your square and stick one in the middle as well. Lots of different options, but I think the overwhelming message is it's your hobby. Do what you want and do what matches your table size. And I think I'll be flexible and change depending on the size of game I'm playing. So if I'm playing a game with 2 brigades of 3 regiments aside, then I'm going to run all 4. If I want to run a bigger engagement but I'm still trying to run it on a regular size table, then I may well cut things down just so they fit. So just be flexible, really. So while we're kind of on the subject of scale, I just wanted to cover off terrain and things. I'm starting to plan what I need to purchase, or what I'd like to purchase. I'm definitely going to be grabbing hold of some of the Sarissa Precision kits. There's obviously a building in each of the starter boxes. I think I'm probably going to pick up the La Haye Saint set because it looks fantastic. £30 seems really cheap for all of that real estate on the board, and I think that's the area that at least the 5th Battalion of the King's German Legion were fighting in, so it might be nice to focus the part of Waterloo that I'm going to do as a project around that building. But anyway, let's bring you back to scale a little bit more. So those of you who have followed my American Civil War project vlogs will know that I talked about this quite a bit and bought quite a few different buildings for different senior manufacturers. And there's a real question between the 10mm and the 15mm scales. So the Sarissa 15mm buildings are pretty true 15mm. I think they're quite nice and chunky, and they may even suit some of your larger newer style 15mm, your 18mm quite well as well. And they look absolutely perfect. This is, excuse the period, this is obviously a North American house from that game. Suits the scale of the individual man fantastically. But they are quite large footprint as well, so sometimes if you want just to represent a couple of buildings or something, you might only be able to use one in a village, but if you, I don't know, you want to have a large amount of a town on a building or a certain area, using this scale could be too big. So there's always a bit of a balance. these white buildings you see are some 10mm 3D printed Spanish town that I got on eBay. They're still available now. They do them in 15mm as well. And on the battlefield, they probably look quite nice, but they obviously are a little small, as you can tell. And if you measure them up to the doorways there, you can see that they would be whacking their noses on the top lintel of the door. So for me, maybe these are a little too small. Now I do have some 10mm buildings that have become the primary set of terrain I'm using for an Antietam battle that I'm working towards for my American Civil War project, and they are much larger than these. They're probably, maybe they'd be, you could say they're 12mm. I'm just saying this off the top of my head. I've not measured anything, but they do seem to fit somewhere nicely in between the 10 and the 15. And I guess people with 3D printers, and this doesn't include me, I purchased these that way, who are able to resize things to maybe 12mm or somewhere in the middle, might be able to get that nice sweet spot for it. So I got these out excitedly, thinking, brilliant, I've got a set of Spanish buildings, and there is a town, the small town of Romana Major, which I'm focusing on the battle around as well. There's some famous pictures of the battle around that way. I'll probably put something on the screen now. So I really like the idea of having that town as a section of the battlefield. I thought this might do it. I think it's probably a little bit too small, and it's making me twitch a little bit, or how small it is. I'm tempted to buy the same thing in 15, because if this is a little small, maybe that would be quite a small 15. I have ordered a Spanish town set in MDF from a laser cut company called Empires at War, and I don't know how well that will scale, but it's sort of pre-coloured. I think the walls are pre-coloured cream. I'm just really impressed by the pictures. I have no idea how good they're going to be, so I'm used to the quality of Sarissa Precision stuff. I don't know how well it will match up. My expectations are that it won't be quite as good, but it doesn't matter, because I'm quite happy to paint on top and things like that. And as it stands, unless I've missed it, Sarissa don't have any 15mm scale Spanish, Portuguese, Peninsula style buildings and things. A couple more things I want to tick off in this first vlog, and before I let you go, really, I wanted to talk about alternative miniatures. I know that was a big topic in the Epic Napoleonic group that Ken from Miniature Wargaming Warriors and myself set up. I'll pop a link in the show description for that if you're on Facebook and you haven't been in that group. It's well worth joining. Lots of lovely friendly discussion in there, very epic safe discussion. I know some of the other groups occasionally, some people don't like the epic scale stuff, or Warlord games, or Black Powder, or sometimes a combination of it all, and it can get a little bit judgmental at times, but there's none of that in the group. It's a nice sort of very nice safe place to talk about epic scale. Now with American Civil War, you had Callistra doing 12mm models and some of the smaller 15s, and I used some Peter Pig models. Now I'm not a fan personally of using them for the regular troops. I really love the ranked up look. That is the appeal for this thing for me, as well as it being in plastic. But I do like a bit more variety when it comes to your officers. Obviously you've got this one sculpt from Warlord for the British, one for the French, and we know they're going to do some generals packs, all the big personalities and things, but I like having multiple people on a command base. For a brigade, maybe 2 or 3 mounted officers, nice little scene or something like that, and I want sort of regular colonels and brigadiers, as well as higher level stuff, and maybe even models for people running orders and stuff like that as well. I really like to go into the project in a big way. So I've heard a lot of chatter about different manufacturers, and one of them was about minifigs, the original old style minifigs. You can pick them up from Cavalier Books in the UK. So I ordered these 6 packs. Didn't need all 6, but I thought I'd go for it anyway, and these are just mounted officers. I've seen a few comparison pics of the infantry. The infantry are obviously larger. There's nothing wrong with mixing them. I'd play against someone who mixed them, but that's not for me. But what I'm interested in is how well they marry up. Now, I bought French generals, named French generals. Some of them they may well never be made by Warlord. Obviously Napoleon, Ney and Salt, I imagine that would be pretty nailed on. That's Warlord are going to do that, and I imagine their sculpts will be better. Same when it comes to the British. That's Wellington, Hill and Picton. Pretty sure they're going to have us covered there. But what we can do is look at sort of standard generals. It's got line and guard colonels, and let's just grab one of these and show you how well it compares in terms of size. I'll put photos up as well with the Warlord sculpts. They're really very, very, very close. And all the people out there saying that the scales don't match, I actually think that this Waterloo range is just a smidgen bigger than the Epic ATW range. I think maybe they're the same measurements to the eye, but I just think they're a little bit fuller in the figure, a little bit bigger. And if you match up the artillery, the Royal Horse Artillery against the artillery for the American Civil War, I think it looks a little bit bigger. So that maybe that's helping some of these things as well. So I'm really happy with these. I love the Warlord range. I'll only be using these to fill in where there are gaps, and for me the variety is needed. So I can definitely say that minifigs, original minifigs, mounted officers are a good shout and a good mix. And the other way to give yourself some variety is to do a conversion. I'll pop a couple of images that shows you what I did here. But the guy on the left here is converted from the guy on the right, so that's your standard pose for the British officer. I've removed the head, swapped it with one from the officer on the infantry stand, and I've cut his arm off, cut the pointing finger off and repositioned it. And that's him primed and ready to go. I used the head, replaced the one I cut off, so we've got a bicorn there on the officer on that infantry stand. So just the head swap alone, which is really, really simple, gives you a different look on the infantry stand and gives you a different looking officer there. So this will be my first brigadier for the King's German Legion that I talked about at the big top of this vlog, and he'll just be an ADC or something like that. But that's the extent of what I've done so far. A bit of planning, lots of painting, more painting on the way. There'll be more painting tutorials on the way as well. Like I mentioned earlier, the horse artillery painting tutorial will be out a couple of days after this, and then shortly after that will be the rifles, and then we get into the cavalry as well. Next vlog, hopefully by then I'll be able to talk a little bit more about terrain, because the buildings hopefully will have arrived. The mat I've purchased for Peninsula will have arrived, and I'll be able to sort of talk a little bit more about the planning of how I'm going to do both theatres, so how I'm going to do Peninsular War. I think I need to do a little bit more planning around the Waterloo and how I can do the crossover, etc. But anyway, lots of rambling on these things. If you drop us a comment below, give us your thoughts, any manufacturers tips and things like that, really, really useful, especially when it comes to buildings. Yeah, if you like the video, give us a like. Please think about subscribing, and I'll catch you all soon.